Dozens are killed following a stampede at a religious event in Ethiopia. Fighting words from South Sudan's Riek Machar. And the City of Light goes dark for American reality TV star Kim Kardashian West following a daring armed robbery. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, an annual cultural event in the Oromia region of Ethiopia turned deadly on Sunday when police fired tear gas and warning shots to disperse anti-government protesters. The tragedy occurred in Bishoftu, located about 40 kilometers southeast of Addis Ababa. Witnesses told VOA the audience at the Irrecha festival was angered during the speech of an Oromo traditional leader known as the Abba Gada, and objected to a display of the Ethiopian government flag near the stage. A group of young people rushed the stage and tried to remove the flag, and security forces responded by beating the protesters. Soldiers fired tear gas and people panicked and ran for safety. Many people fleeing the scene ran into deep ditches near the festival site and were stampeded. Local officials reported that at least 52 people were killed, but witnesses say at least 100 people lost their lives. Now, tensions have been high between the Oromo people and the federal government during the past year. Oromo protesters were angered last November by a plan to expand the limits of the capital city, which encroached on the farmlands and regional government of the Oromo people. Now, for more insight into the tragedy, I'm joined by Mohammed Ademo. He's a journalist and founder of allpride.com. That's a multimedia website that aggregates Oromo, Ethiopian, and Horn-related news. Mr. Ademo, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Now, first, really a sad event. But this is not the first time people are dying in that region, right?
Yes, this is probably the darkest hour in contemporary Oromo history, in Ethiopian history, in the sense that we have never seen anything like this at a cultural event where peace and love in harmony, people pray for peace, love, and harmony, is unique in that sense.
Yeah.
But the killings have been going on for the past 11 months, and they're not new. It's just a continuation of what has been going on, and events in Ethiopia really coming to a head and reaching a point of no return where people are just tired of being killed, and they're being killed on the streets, they're being killed in their houses, and they're being killed in their schools. Now they're being killed at sacred lands, at spaces where they went to pray for peace and they want to celebrate their culture, their heritage. These are very special moments, and they're being killed.
Now some people may say this was partially an accident, in that there was no intention of killing anybody, but, a stampede occurred because of a protest against putting a flag on the stage. Why is that flag a very sensitive thing to the people of Oromia region?
Let me first say that this was clearly not an accident. And you have 2 million people in a very crowded, very small place. On one side you have a lake, on the other side you have ditches and cliffs. And you fire tear gas and warning shots at a crowd that is angry, crowd that was passionately chanting and protesting all day. You should expect the result. In the best way to crowd control people, 2 million people in that space, very small space. I've been there myself 3 times in the past. This is not an accident, and it was a crowd control that gone bad at the best case scenario. On the worst case scenario, this is pre-planned, because the government has said that they expected the protest to continue at the Irrecha. They they expected this to happen, but they planned brought in helicopters were flying above the crowd at a very low height all day long. There were tanks on the street. There were armored vehicles on the side of the street. So they clearly planned for this. And people who were there are saying that the number of security forces on that stage, around that stage, around the crowd, is almost as many as the crowd that was gathered there.
That is very disturbing.
So it is very hard for me to sit here and say that this was an accident.
And now you're talking about, like millions of people, or at least hundreds of thousands of people. this number, 52 or 100, is that going to be the final number of people who have died in this event?
Look, in the past 11 months, activists have reported, and we have names of about 1,000 people who've been killed in Oromia state alone. And the government has admitted to almost about 170 of that. So the government number is a window, is a smoke screen. What we are hearing from doctors and health workers who were at the hospital where some of these victims were taken, they've counted at least 300 people, 300 dead bodies from this event. So the number the activists that are putting out now is about 500, more than 500. And as you've seen, if you've seen the news this morning, there are people still being pulled out of the ditches, and people are still being pulled out of the cliffs. So this is going to rise, and the number is going to rise. And it's not only that. And this is a very ancient lake, and it is very deep, and there are historical facts around it. And there are people who actually fell into the lake.
Itself.
And the fate of those, we may never even know. They may never be accounted for.
Really sad. And we'll continue covering this and updating, and probably we'll call on you to kind of give us some more information as you get it. Thanks a lot, Mohammed.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Well, that is Mohammed Ademo. He's a journalist and a founder of allpride.com. Now, turning to the Syrian civil war, the government's indiscriminate shelling of civilians in Aleppo in the past 2 weeks has sparked international outrage. President Bashar al-Assad's army, backed by Russia and Iran, has continued to bomb and shell hospitals, and the loss of medical personnel has left wounded residents with little or no help. VOA's Zlatica Hoke reports.
Video footage showing dust-covered and bloodied babies being pulled out of debris in Aleppo and Idlib, and children running through wreckage-covered streets to save their lives, is sparking anger at Syria's regime and its supporters, but also at the world leaders who have failed to stop the carnage.
I think it's disgusting that people, innocent people, civilians, are being sort of dismissed as collateral damage in a war.
United Nations is useless. They are killer, they are murderer, they are liar. All the world are liar. They don't do anything at all.
Activists say they are organizing more protests around the world.
In U.S., in Argentina, and Spain, and Germany, and France, and other countries. And we are people from Syria and from Turkey, and some of our friends are expressing our anger towards the Russian aggression that led so far to the killing of more than 400 people and around 100 children.
In addition to the death toll, nearly 900 people in Aleppo have been wounded, one-third of them children. The shelling of hospitals and attacks on humanitarian workers have drastically reduced the ability of medical workers to save lives.
There are now less than 30 doctors working in Aleppo City. Several days ago, a couple of weeks ago, we were saying there were 35, but we're seeing a reduction in the number of health workers who are able to stay at their post. And believe me, these guys are exhausted, they're drained physically, emotionally, but the work they're doing is beyond heroic.
The World Health Organization says 2 major Aleppo hospitals were deliberately targeted in recent days, as were the water supply sources. The United States has condemned Russia for engaging in the violence to help shore up Assad's regime, but Moscow is showing no signs of relenting in the campaign aimed at securing its influence in the region. Russian airstrikes have killed more than 9,000 people across Syria in the past year. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, in the battle for the White House, American voters may now have greater insight into a question that has dogged Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. What do his tax returns reveal about the real estate mogul's financial dealings and business ability? Now, viewers, Michael Bowman has more.
Sent anonymously to The Times, the documents show Trump declared a $916 million loss on his 1995 returns, allowing him to pay no tax on any income in subsequent years totaling the same amount.
he didn't pay any federal income tax. So
that makes me smart.
The topic played prominently in last week's debate between Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton.
And we have a country that needs new roads, new tunnels, new bridges, new airports, new schools, new hospitals. And we don't have the money because it's been squandered on so many of your ideas.
And maybe because you haven't paid any federal income tax for a lot of years.
Trump's surrogates are defending the nominee's refusal to release his tax returns, as well as his record as a businessman.
This man, 26 years ago, had some failures, and then he built an empire. He was a genius in being able to do that. Went down, came all the way back up. America needs a turnaround right now. And Donald Trump is a turnaround artist.
Well, I'll tell you what, if not paying taxes makes him smart, what does that make the rest of us? It's probably true he hasn't paid a penny in federal taxes to actually support our military or our vets or our schools.
Nothing in the document sent to the Times shows illegal behavior by Trump. All Americans can offset taxable gains with financial losses. But in a political cycle where income inequality and transparency have been major issues, Trump's tax history, what is known and unknown, is giving Democrats ammunition as Election Day draws closer. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, the one-on-one only U.S. vice presidential debate is set for Tuesday night. And at first glance, Indiana Governor Mike Pence may not seem like the right running mate for brash New Yorker Donald Trump. Well, VOA's Catherine Gibson has more on the Midwestern values and Washington experience Pence brings to the Republican ticket.
Will be the next vice president of the United States, Governor Mike Pence. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
He's a Midwestern man with strong conservative credentials.
Now, people who know me well know I'm a pretty basic guy. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order.
Values Pence draws from his home state.
Good people do good things when no one's looking. And that's part of what embodies being, I think, from the middle part of the country and from a state like Indiana.
Back in the 1990s, when Pence was a conservative talk show host, he took the time to talk to Randy DeClean about his hopes for the future and for government service.
The overarching message of what he had to say was very, very positive and upbeat and inspiring.
He's a man of faith. He's a man of conviction. He's a man you can trust. He comes from the heart of the conservative movement and from the heart of America.
After 2 unsuccessful runs for Congress, Pence finally became the representative for Indiana on Capitol Hill in 2000.
He gained experience in Washington, but doesn't see government as the only answer to people's problems.
We're tired of being told that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives better for us than we can plan them for ourselves.
Pence returned to Indiana in 2012 to serve as governor, courting controversy on abortion and the conflict between gay rights and religious freedom.
This law does not give businesses a right to deny services to anyone.
Pence's strong beliefs bring balance to the ticket, despite being Trump's opposite in many ways.
The conservative branch of the party, who's been suspicious of Donald Trump, know that they can trust Pence. So if Trump is elected, I think Pence can be of great value in terms of dealing with members of Congress on behalf of the administration.
But Pence's personal values are far more important, says DeClean.
I think he has those qualities to be a bold, broad, strategic leader.
Qualities Pence hopes will convince voters this November. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Well, immigration has been a hot-button topic of the U.S. presidential election. Closing out the most recent fiscal year, the U.S. admitted nearly 85,000 refugees. Meanwhile, the advocacy group, the Refugee Congress, traveled recently to Washington to talk to lawmakers about refugee concerns. VOA's Jeff Swikert has more.
Thank you very much for having us.
Jayka Katervavica is a delegate from Iowa to the U.S. Refugee Congress. Today, Jayka and other delegates visiting Washington are meeting with their members of Congress to remind them that the number of forcibly displaced persons around the world is at an all-time high.
And hopefully, we are thinking that our
votes and our ideas and our advocating would help Congress to approve a larger number of refugees that would be resettled to the United States in 2017.
According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, 65.3 million people around the world have been displaced by conflict or persecution. 20 million are refugees. The White House wants the U.S. to take 110,000 refugees in 2007, up from 85,000 this year. Christopher Boyan with UNHCR says each nation must pitch in and do what it can in their own way.
So the world is now facing a refugee situation of a scope and nature that it has not seen before. And it's really time for new solutions, new mechanisms, new ways for the world to step up and address the situation at hand.
There has been some resistance to stepping up. As hundreds of thousands of refugees streamed into Europe last fall, some nationalist leaders moved quickly to close their borders. In the U.S., Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has vowed to send all Syrian refugees back to the region.
But we have no idea who they are, where they come from. There's no documentation. We have to be crazy. No, I will tell you, they're going home. If I become president, we have to. We have to.
Jeka Krvavitsa says the security concerns are unfounded. She says refugees are the most vetted group allowed into the country, a process that can last up to 2 years.
Unfortunately, many people think that refugees come to this country as terrorists, which they don't. Many of people think that refugees do not pay taxes and live in the United States for free, which is not true.
She says part of the solution is to educate the public about who refugees are and how historically they have made great contributions to American society. Jeff Swycord, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, the U.S. condemns comments by South Sudan's opposition leader for a return to war against the government.
For a healthier planet.
Ocean currents and electrical currents. What do the two have in common? It can take one to make one. At least that's the case in eastern Taiwan, where researchers have successfully built a generator powered by the ocean.
We were able to produce 26.21 kilowatts of power with 1.27 meters per second of ocean current.
After 7 years of experimenting, Professor Chun Young Yi at National Sun Yat-sen University is generating electricity in the ocean, sort of a submerged windmill with 20 huge blades.
The kinetic energy of the currents becomes mechanical power, which is transformed into electric energy, and it continuously produces electricity.
Chun's goal is to replace nuclear power, which makes up about 16% of Taiwan's energy source, with wave power. He eventually plans to install dozens of the ocean-powered generators off the coast of Taiwan. I'm Rebecca Ward for VOA's Green Beat.
Welcome back. The U.S. State Department is condemning comments by South Sudan's opposition leader that call for a return to war against the government, saying it is inexcusable and shows a lack of concern for the well-being of the people. Now, Riek Machar, the country's former first vice president, and his allies ordered their forces to reorganize for armed resistance against the South Sudanese government. Now, State Department spokesman John Kirby told reporters that the declaration, and here a quote, indicates a lack of concern for the well-being of the nation's people, many of whom continue to struggle just to survive and just as much want to see peace. Machar led a 2-year rebellion against forces loyal to his longtime rival, President Salva Kiir, before the two sides reached a peace deal in August of 2015. Now, for more insight into the situation, joining me in the studio is Stephen Parkour. He's a member of the Political Bureau, Sudanese People's Liberation Movement, in opposition. Stephen, Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for giving me this opportunity to communicate with our people.
Great. Now let's communicate with your people. You know, most South Sudanese people we meet say they're tired of war. They're tired. Why would your side want to subject them to the brutality of this unending war?
Our people are tired of war, and that was why we signed peace agreements before Kiir even signed it. And we went to Juba. That was to rescue our people from this brutal war. And our people are sick of this war. But it is not the SPLM-IO declaring war now. It is the people of South Sudan actually declaring
it's the leadership.
war. No.
The
Listen to me. Yeah. The leadership is just managing an anger of the people who have been brutalized by this dictatorial regime in Juba. You know, it is funny that the United States and the international community have not condemned violation of the agreements by Salva Kiir, well documented by the United Nations panel of experts, JMAX and all the international observers. The first vice president, Dr. Riek Machar, was almost killed in Juba in his sincere effort to implement the agreement. That was not condemned.
Now, let's say this. Let's say there have been violations of this peace deal, and in fact, by both sides, you do accuse each other. Is war the best thing for the people of South Sudan who have already been killed, raped, ran out of their houses and live in refugee camps?
By the way, the sentiment of the people is actually now war. And it is not SPLM-IO declaring war. We are just responding to the call of the people. And you see it in Pibor, the former rebel movement would sign an agreement with the government has defected because the government has violated that agreement. Dr. Lama Call, who led peaceful resistance inside as the legitimate opposition in the government, has also declared war. It is the sentiment of the people, and I don't want you to also take it from this context. Our message has been a challenge to the international community to actually challenge the government of the day to implement the peace agreement. That one is not forthcoming.
Now the international community is ready to send in a force, a military force. Will you engage that force?
Oh, yes.
Are you willing to fight with the force?
By the way, we were the one who demanded this force. And it's not coming as we speak. And the current government is committing genocide in Western Baragazal,
But war will actually
Upper
create opportunities for more killings, right?
By the way, the government is killing people as we speak. And you are telling us not to kill that government. This government has attempted to kill American diplomats, rapes Americans. The American government is not condemning that.
Okay. Now the question
is... This government is raping our citizen, is killing our citizen. But that is not also condemned.
But your side believes to fight
war
this
is not the solution.
It's not the solution.
Actually, this agreement is a brainchild of the SPLM-IO.
Very quick question.
We
SPLIO,
signed it first and we went there to implement it.
SPLIO
the international
right now
community
is divided,
has not done its part.
It's a two...
It's not, the SPLM-IO is not divided.
We have one in Juba, one out of Juba.
By the way, SPLM has remained intact as we speak. The leadership of the SPLM-IO has survived this assassination attempt, and it is intact.
But some of you are part of the government,
The food that you see in Juba have just been bought off.
So they're not part of you?
They are not part of us.
You know what?
And actually, they have no impact on us.
We'll see how this goes, but be sure many of your people tell us they don't want to see war. And, we might call you back here to come and talk to us a little more. Thanks a lot, Stephen, for now. And that is Stephen Parkwall. He's a member of the Political Bureau of Sudanese People's Liberation Movement in the opposition. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. An American reality TV star hits the headlines as following a brazen robbery in Paris. We'll be right back.
Let's take a look at what's trending. Kim Kardashian West, for one, she's all over social media, but not for the usual reasons. The reality star was robbed at gunpoint in her private rental apartment in Paris. 5 men in ski masks and police jackets were involved in the robbery at about 3 a.m. local time. 2 of the men bound Kardashian's hands and feet with tape, then locked her in the bathroom before taking valuables worth several millions of dollars, including jewelry and 2 cell phones. Kim's husband, Kanye West, interrupted a performance in New York when he received the news. The world's first bionic games get underway within days, with competitors from 65 countries taking part. The Cybathlon event is scheduled to kick off October 8th in Zurich, Switzerland. It's organized by the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. The games are funded and supported by universities and companies that specialize in technologies to assist disabled people. Organizers hope that by showcasing the technology in a competitive environment, a global audience will see which bionics are best, most efficient and effective. And in other technology news, this time in China, smog routinely blankets the streets of China's cities, but a Dutch artist is offering an eccentric solution to China's air pollution problems. He's created a 7-meter metal structure that takes in smog and breathes out cleaner air. The smog-free tower is comprised of 45 silver plates. It contains an air-purifying machine that catches smog particles and turns them into pitch-black powder. According to the latest report from the World Health Organization, China is the world's deadliest country for outdoor air pollution. And that is what's trending. Vincent, back to you.
Thank you very much, Hadia. That's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com for more news. Tune in to VOA's evening radio show, African News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to Voice of America's News Words, where we talk about words you hear in the news.
This word is about something that might happen. Listen to hear it 2 times.
Potential.
A potential refugee crisis is brewing amid shortages of fuel and medicine elsewhere in the country. President Obama says the situation could spread more broadly in the Middle East, but continues to limit the scope of potential U.S. involvement.
Potential is a word that means something could happen. There is the possibility that all the pieces are there for it to happen.
The reporter said it is possible that a refugee crisis could develop in Iraq. Now, the next time you hear potential, you will know what this news word means.